So welcome to the first of hopefully many videos on basically just boosting up our knowledge of economics for year one. Firstly, we're obviously going to be looking at the goods market, which is macroeconomics, and hopefully give you guys a bit of a refresh. Firstly, looking at the demand for goods equation, we have C, which basically is our consumption, I is our investment, G is government spending, and then X minus M, that's exports minus imports. Now, if we were in a closed economy, for example, X minus M would be 0. However, in most cases, when trade is available, we have X minus M being a whole number. The C part of this equation is consumption, and disposable income is a function of it. Disposable income is the amount that we can spend after taxation. C, therefore, can also be written as C0 plus C1 times by YD. Now, what all that means is C0 is what we consume if we basically had no income at all. So what do we have to spend money on? So necessities, really. And C1 is our marginal propensity to consume. So you times that by the amount that we are actually able to spend, and then you get the amount of consumption that we have as a whole. Moving on to this graph, if we basically plot our consumption function, you can be able to see on the y-axis that it's not at the 0 mark. And that's obviously because of that, autonomous spending that we talked about before, where you have to spend on necessities, otherwise you won't be able to live. And the slope of this curve is basically C1, so that's our marginal propensity to consume. Looking at these two variables, we have endogenous and exogenous. The differences being endogenous depend on other variables in the model, whereas exogenous variables are basically given to us and are not explained in the model. Examples of exogenous variables are government spending and taxation, for example, because most of the time we assume that the government's in control of that, whereas we won't be able to decide that in the model, obviously, we just take that as given. This small little equation basically just says that in equilibrium, our income is equal to the output in the economy. Simple as, but a lot of the time, that's not genuinely the case. Now, you can obviously see a lot of equations here on the right, but we're just going to break it down one by one. So starting at the top, you can obviously see the consumption function that we talked about before at the start. So C is equal to C0 plus C1 YD. And we talked about disposable income being the amount you can spend. So if you think about all the income that you receive, if it was then taxed and you took away all the tax, that's how much you've got left to spend. So all we then do is sub it in. So we've now got C is equal to C0 plus C1 Y minus T. Going back to our demand for goods equation that you can see there, sub that in for C, and then you have Z is equal to C0 plus C1 brackets Y minus T plus I plus G. Sub off Y for Z, as we talked about in the last slide, and then basically just expand the brackets and take all the Y's to one side. You're then left with 1 minus C1y is equal to C0 plus I plus G minus C1t. And to finish us off, divide by 1 minus C1, and you get y is equal to 1 over 1 minus C1, C0 plus I plus G minus C1t. And that's our final equation. And what you'll notice at the start is you've got 1 over 1 minus C1, which is 1 over 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume. And that is our multiplier. The multiplier is either 1 over 1 minus your marginal propensity to consume, or basically just 1 over your marginal propensity to save. And all it means is if we were to increase, our autonomous spending C0 by a billion, then we would see an increase of 1 over 1 minus C1 billion pounds in the economy. In the graph, you'll be able to see that on the y-axis, again, we've got autonomous spending there, because obviously you've got spend even when income's nothing. The pink line is our demand, and the black line is our production. The black line is 45 degrees to the axis, and our equilibrium point, that's where your income is. The slope of the pink line, that's C1, and the slope of the black line, that's just 1. Moving on to savings now. So we've obviously got savings is equal to Y minus T minus C, and that's our private savings. That's basically our savings. So you think all the income we receive, minus the tax that we pay the government, minus the amount we spend on stuff, our consumption, that's how much we have left to save. Whereas public savings, that is for the government, so it's all the tax revenue that they receive, minus the amount that they then spend on the economy as a whole, and that's how much the government or our public savings are. Finishing us off, we're looking at the IS relation, basically just means that investment equals savings, or production equals demand. We obviously have I is equal to our private savings, S, plus T minus G, which we just learned was our public savings. And that is your IS relation. Thank you for watching the goods market video.